Targeted inspections. Targeted inspections, sometimes referred to as programmed inspections, occur in industries that have high rates of injury or illness. Workplaces are selected at random to ensure compliance with OSHA regulations. Imminent danger. Imminent danger inspections are the highest priority. This term refers to situations where there is reasonable certainty that a serious hazard is present, which could likely lead to death or serious injury immediately. For instance, employees working near an unprotected edge, elevated heights without fall protection are in an imminent danger situation. Follow-up inspections. The final type of inspection is a follow-up inspection. The purpose of this inspection is to verify whether the employer has addressed and corrected previously cited violations. Lesson summary. OSHA was established in 1970 to protect Americans from unsafe or unhealthy working conditions. It is the employer's responsibility to ensure a safe workplace. With a few exceptions, OSHA standards apply to all employers and employees in the United States. Those exceptions include the self-employed, the farming families who do not employ outside workers, employees of other federal agencies, and public employees in state and local governments. Since OSHA was created, work-related fatality rates have fallen dramatically. OSHA encourages states to develop and enforce their own worker safety plans, as long as they are approved by OSHA. If these plans cover the private sector, they must also cover state and local governments. 22 states and territories currently operate plans covering both private and public employers, while 6 others have plans covering only state and local government employees. OSHA standards are rules that describe methods employers must use to protect their employees from hazards. OSHA's standards for the construction industry are contained in 29 CFR 1926. An important section of the standards includes the General Duty Clause, which states that, aside from all specific regulations, employers are generally responsible for maintaining a safe and healthy workplace. Standards are enforced by OSHA inspectors, but because there are so few inspectors in relation to the number of work sites, only the most dangerous work sites are routinely inspected. Lesson 2. Employer responsibilities. Lesson focus. At the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify and explain employers' responsibilities as specified by OSHA, recognize and know how to use safety data sheets. Employers' responsibilities. Employers are responsible for maintaining conditions and adopting the reasonable practices necessary to protect workers on the job. The first and best strategy is to control the hazard at its source. Engineering controls do this, unlike other controls that generally focus on the worker who is exposed to the hazard. The basic concept behind engineering controls is that, to the extent feasible, the work environment and the job itself should be designed to eliminate hazards and reduce exposure to hazards. Employers should be familiar with the standards that apply to their workplaces and should comply with these standards. This includes ensuring that workers are provided with and use personal protective equipment when needed. When exposure to hazards cannot be engineered completely out of normal operations or maintenance work, and when safe work practices and other forms of administrative controls cannot provide sufficient protection, an additional method of control may be the use of protective clothing or equipment. Employers must comply with the OSHA Act's General Duty Clause when no specific standards apply. OSHA also encourages all employers to adopt a safety and health program that includes management leadership, worker participation, and a systematic approach to finding and fixing hazards. Safety and health programs, known by a variety of names, are universal interventions that can substantially reduce the number and severity of workplace injuries. Under the OSHA Act, employers' responsibilities include, but are not limited to, the following. Provide a workplace free from recognized hazards and comply with OSHA standards. Examine workplace conditions to make sure they conform to applicable OSHA standards. Make sure employees have and use safe tools and equipment and that they properly maintain this equipment. Establish and update operating procedures and communicate them so that employees follow safety and health requirements. Provide the training required by OSHA standards in a format, language, and vocabulary workers can understand. Keep records of injuries and illnesses. Set up a reporting system. Provide copies of logs, that is, OSHA 300, upon request. Post the annual summary. Report, within 8 hours, any work-related fatalities and, within 24 hours, all work-related inpatient hospitalizations, amputations, and losses of an eye. Provide medical exams when required by OSHA standards and provide workers access to their exposure and medical records. Do not discriminate against workers who exercise their rights under the Act. Post, at a prominent location within the workplace, the OSHA poster, or the state planted booklet, informing employees of their rights and responsibilities. Post OSHA citations and abatement verification notices. Provide and pay for most personal protective equipment, PPE. Source, employers must provide and pay for PPE. Safety data sheets, SDS. Your right to know about hazardous chemicals. Employers must have a written hazard communication program that includes information on the following: container labeling, safety data sheets, SDSs, and worker training. Training must include information about the physical and health hazards of the chemicals and how workers can protect themselves, including specific procedures the employer has implemented to protect those working with chemical materials. These protections include safe work practices, emergency procedures, and personal protective equipment. Safety data sheets include information such as the properties of each chemical, the physical, health, and environmental hazards, protective measures, and safety precautions for handling, storing, and transporting the chemical. The information contained in the SDS must be in English, although it may be in other languages as well. In addition, OSHA requires that SDS preparers provide specific minimum information as detailed in Appendix D of 29 CFR 1910.1200. The SDS preparers may also include additional information in various sections. Sections 1 through 8 contain general information about chemical identification, hazards, composition, safe handling practices, and emergency control measures, for example, firefighting. Sections 9 through 11 and 16 contain other technical and scientific information, such as physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity information, toxicological information, exposure control information, and other details, including the date of preparation or last revision. The SDS should state that no applicable information was found if the preparer does not find relevant information for any required element. The SDS must also contain sections 12 through 15 to be consistent with the UN Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, GHS, but OSHA will not enforce the content of these sections because they concern matters handled by other agencies. Click here to view a sample safety data sheet. Workplace mental health. Mental health is a crucial aspect of overall well-being and is just as important as physical health for all employees. Work-related mental health issues can negatively affect an employee's social interactions, productivity, performance, and absenteeism. Stress can manifest in various ways, including muscle tension, headaches, stomach discomfort, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Neglecting workplace stress can lead to lasting harmful effects on individuals, families, co-workers, and communities. Employers can help change the stigma surrounding mental health by prioritizing it within their workplace culture, engaging in conversations about it, and knowing how to support employees who express the need for assistance. Click here for more information on workplace mental health. Lesson summary. Employers are responsible for maintaining conditions and adopting reasonable practices necessary to protect workers on the job. They must also comply with the OSHA Act's General Duty Clause when no specific standards apply. OSHA also encourages all employers to adopt a safety and health program that includes management leadership, worker participation, and a systematic approach to finding and fixing hazards. Safety and health programs, known by a variety of names, are universal interventions that can substantially reduce the number and severity of workplace injuries. Safety data sheets, SDSs, contain information about potentially hazardous chemicals that may be encountered on a work site, such as the properties of each chemical, the physical, health, and environmental hazards, protective measures, and safety precautions for handling, storing, and transporting the chemical. The information contained in the SDS must be in English, although it may be in other languages as well. SDSs should be made readily accessible to workers and inspectors. An SDS is divided into 16 sections, containing general information about the chemical identification, hazards, composition, safe handling practices, and emergency control measures, sections 1 to 8, as well as other technical and scientific information, such as physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity information, toxicological information, exposure control information, and other relevant data, including the date of preparation and last revision. The SDS should state that no applicable information was found if the preparer does not find relevant information for any required element. Workplace mental health is a vital component of overall well-being that is equally important as physical health for all employees. Employers can help reduce the stigma surrounding mental health by prioritizing it within their workplace culture, encouraging open discussions, and understanding how to support employees who seek assistance. Lesson 3. Workers' Rights and Responsibilities. Lesson Focus. At the end of this lesson, students will be able to identify and explain workers' rights as specified by OSHA, properly report safety hazards, explain whistleblower protections, locate worker resources. Workers' rights. In addition to a generally safe and healthful workplace, OSHA guarantees workers other rights, such as the right to receive notification and training regarding hazardous chemicals or the right to submit a complaint to OSHA without fear of retribution. The following table lists workers' rights as specified by OSHA. The following sections provide further details about the rights listed in the table above. Know about hazardous conditions. In addition to a generally safe workplace, workers have the right to know about hazardous substances in their workplace. Employers must have a written, complete hazard communication program that includes information on container labeling as well as safety data sheets, SDSs. Worker training must include the physical and health hazards of the chemicals and how workers can protect themselves, including specific procedures the employer has implemented to protect workers. This training must be in a language and vocabulary that workers can understand. The program must also include a list of the hazardous chemicals in each work area and the means the employer uses to inform workers of the hazards of non-routine tasks. It must also require that hazardous chemical containers are properly labeled with the identity of the hazardous chemical and appropriate hazard warnings. In addition, the program must explain how the employer will inform other employers of hazards to which their workers may be exposed, for example, contract workers. Information about injuries and illnesses in the workplace. OSHA's record-keeping rule requires most employers with more than 10 workers to keep a log of injuries and illnesses. The log, which is also called the OSHA 300, must contain all work-related injuries and illnesses resulting in lost workdays, restricted work, or transfer to another job, as well as any incident requiring more than first aid treatment. Workers have the right to review the current log and the log score for the past 5 years. The employer must provide this by the end of the next workday once a worker requests the logs. The names and other information on the log may not be removed unless the case is a privacy concern case. A privacy concern case involves an intimate body part, mental illness, HIV, or other sensitive information. For more detail, see 1904.29(7). Employees also have the right to view the annually posted summary of the injuries and illnesses, OSHA 300A. Each year between February 1st and April 30th, employers must post a summary of the injury and illness log for the previous year, OSHA Form 300A, in a place where workers can see it. The right to review the log includes former employees, their personal representatives, and authorized employee representatives. Click here to view the OSHA forms for reporting work-related injuries and illnesses. Complain or request hazard correction from employer. Often, the best and fastest way to get a hazard corrected is to notify a supervisor or employee. OSHA guarantees the right to do so without fear of retaliation. Many hazards may not be known to the employer or the employer's representative. Once the hazard has been revealed, it must be corrected promptly. Should it not be corrected, the employee has the option of filing a complaint with OSHA. Training is provided in the OSHA standards. Employees have the right to get training from their employer on a variety of health and safety hazards and standards that their employer must follow. We have already covered the safety data sheet SDS, which is one important way employers can provide information about hazards to their employees. Other required training may include lockout, tagout, bloodborne pathogens, noise hazards, confined spaces, fall hazards in construction, personal protective equipment, and a variety of other subjects. Hazard exposure records and medical records. Under OSHA Standard 1910.1020, you have the right to examine and copy exposure and medical records, including records of workplace monitoring while measuring a toxic substance. This is important if you have been exposed to toxic substances or harmful physical agents in the workplace, as this regulation may help you detect, prevent, and treat occupational diseases. Examples of toxic substances and harmful physical agents are some metals and pests, such as lead, cadmium, and silicon. Biological agents, such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Physical stress, such as noise, heat, cold, vibration, repetitive motion, and ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. OSHA standards require employers to measure exposure to potentially harmful substances, and workers or their representatives have the right to observe the testing and examine the results. If the exposure levels are above the limits set by the standard, the employer must tell workers what will be done to reduce their exposure. File a complaint with OSHA. You may also file a complaint with OSHA if you believe a violation of a safety or health standard or an imminent danger situation exists in your workplace. You may request that your name not be revealed to your employer. You can file a complaint on OSHA's website, in writing, or by telephone. You can contact OSHA by calling 1-800-321-OSHA. If you file a complaint, you have the right to find out OSHA's action on the complaint and request a review if an inspection is not made. Complaints from employees and their representatives are taken seriously by OSHA. It is against the law for an employer to file, demote, transfer, or discriminate in any way against a worker for filing a complaint or using other OSHA laws. Participate in an OSHA inspection. If an OSHA inspection is conducted in your workplace, you have the right to have your representative accompany the inspector on the inspection. Workers may authorize another employer to represent them, or they may select a non-employer. Workers do not have to limit their options for third-party representation to people with formal credentials, like an industrial hygienist or safety engineer. The third-party representative can be qualified to attend an inspection based on their knowledge, skills, or experience. You also have the right to talk to the inspector privately. You may point out hazards or describe injuries, illnesses, or near misses that resulted from those hazards and describe any concerns you have about a safety or health issue. You also have the right to find out about inspection results and abatement measures and get involved in any meetings or hearings related to the inspection. You may also object to the date set for the violation to be corrected and be notified if the employer files a contest. Notice of contest. If an employer disagrees with the results of the OSHA inspection, they may submit a written objection within 15 days of the issuance of a citation to OSHA, called a notice of contest. Workers may only contest the amount of time the employer is given to correct the hazard. Workers' rights. Practice worksheet. Reporting safety hazards. Workers have a right to take action to secure their safety and health on the job without fear of punishment. That right is spelled out in Section 11C of the OSHA Act, which says the employer shall not punish or discriminate against employees for complaining about safety hazards to the employer, a union, or to OSHA or any other government agency. Workers are also protected from retaliation for their participation in OSHA inspections, conferences, hearings, and other OSHA-related activities. Workers also have the right to refuse to do a job.
I didn't realize there was a quiz. Now I gotta start paying attention.
If they are exposed to an imminent danger. Good faith means that, even if an imminent danger is not found to exist, the worker had reasonable grounds to believe that it did exist. Since the conditions necessary to justify a work refusal are very stringent, refusing work should be an action taken as a last resort. If time permits, the condition should be reported to OSHA or the appropriate government agency first. If you believe you have been punished for exercising your safety and health rights, you must contact OSHA within 30 days in order to preserve the protections provided under the OSHA Act. The tables below provide information on how OSHA responds to the way a complaint is reported. Whistleblower protections. The OSHA Act protects workers who complain to their employer, OSHA, or other government agencies about unsafe or unhealthful working conditions in the workplace or environmental problems. Workers cannot be transferred, denied a raise, have their hours reduced, be fired, or be punished in any other way because they exercised any right given to them under the OSHA. Help is available from OSHA for whistleblowers. Read the OSHA fact sheet, OSHA's Whistleblower Protection Program. OSHA recommends that the following message be posted for outreach students. If you have been punished or discriminated against for using your rights, you must file a complaint with OSHA within 30 days of the alleged reprisal for most complaints. No form is required, but you must send a letter or call the OSHA area office nearest you to report the discrimination within 30 days of the alleged discrimination. Worker resources. There are many resources available to workers who want to find out more information about safety and health issues both inside and outside of their workplace. Because of the rights provided to workers, they can utilize some sources inside the workplace, such as employer or supervisor, co-workers and union representatives, safety data sheet or SDS, labels and warning signs, or employee orientation manuals or other training manuals. Read the OSHA's pamphlet, We Are OSHA, We Can Help, regarding workers' rights under the OSHA. Workers can also find safety and health resources outside their workplace. Some examples of these resources include the following. Online resources, many at OSHA Online, such as OSHA Compliance Assistance Specialists in American offices. NIOSH resources. NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, is OSHA's sister agency. They are responsible for conducting research and making recommendations to help prevent workplace illnesses and injuries. Workers can request NIOSH conduct health hazard evaluations, HHEs, of workplaces in cases where workers are getting sick from an unknown cause or are exposed to an agent or working condition that OSHA does not regulate. Read the pamphlet NIOSH Health Hazard Evaluation Book. Healthcare providers. Healthcare providers can be a resource on the health effects of toxic substances, proper medical and first aid treatment, and other health-related issues. Know your rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthful workplace. What specific rights do workers have under OSHA? Select all that apply. rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthy workplace. What specific rights do workers have under OSHA? Select all that apply. Know your rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthy workplace. What specific rights do workers have under OSHA? Select all that apply. Know your rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthy workplace. What specific rights do workers have under OSHA? Select all that apply. Know your rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthy workplace. What specific rights do workers have under OSHA? Select all that apply. Know your rights. The creation of OSHA provided workers the right to a safe and healthy workplace. What specific lesson summary? OSHA guarantees workers certain specific rights in addition to the general right to a safe workplace. These rights include the following: a safe and healthful workplace, know about hazardous conditions, information about injuries and illnesses in the workplace, complain about hazards or request hazard correction from the employer. Training is provided in the OSHA standards. Access to hazard exposure records and medical records. File a complaint with OSHA. Participate in an OSHA inspection. Be free from retaliation for exercising safety and health rights. Workers have a right to take action to secure their safety and health on the job without fear of punishment. They also have the right to refuse to do a job if they believe that they are exposed to imminent danger. If a worker believes that they have been discriminated against, they must report it to OSHA within 30 days. This can be done online, in writing, or by telephone. OSHA's standards provide protections for whistleblowers who report workplace safety violations. Workers cannot be transferred, denied a raise, have their hours reduced, be fired, or be punished in any other way because they exercised any right given to them under the OSHA. Module 2. Managing Safety and Health. Module Description. Employers are encouraged to develop and maintain a safety and health program that provides policies, procedures, and practices that protect employees from occupational safety and health hazards. In addition to preventing injuries, illnesses, and fatalities, addressing safety and health issues in the workplace saves the employer money and adds value to the business. This module begins with an overview of accident costs, direct and indirect. Then, we explore the elements and processes of safety programs and worksite analysis. The job hazard analysis is commonly used to train workers how to perform a job in the safest manner possible. Hazard recognition and the hierarchy of controls are also discussed. Next, the module explains how to understand accident causation and various accident theories. If you learn the cause and effect relationship between accident causation and a given element, then you can reduce injuries and illnesses. The final lesson concludes with an overview of incident investigation techniques. Module Learning Objectives. At the end of this module, students will be able to determine the direct cost of an accident, determine the indirect cost of an accident, describe the true cost of an accident related to human error factors, summarize the components of a safety program, explain how hazards are identified, prevented, and controlled, discuss safety training and program improvements, analyze work sites and tasks to identify hazards, explain the hierarchy of controls, understand accident causation theories, explain how unsafe behaviors contribute to accidents, understand the role of a safety management system in preventing accidents and incidents, identify incident investigation techniques to find the root cause of an event. Lesson 1. Accident costs and prevention. Lesson focus. At the end of this lesson, students will be able to determine the direct and indirect costs of an accident, identify the components of a successful safety program, explain the importance of a workplace hazard analysis, recognize different types of hazards, explain the hierarchy of controls, perform a risk analysis. Accident costs. According to the 2024 Liberty Mutual Workplace Safety Index, U.S. businesses spend more than $1 billion each week on workplace injuries, totaling $58 billion per year spent as a result. Many accidents are expensive when considering lost time events. However, there are many more cost factors related to accidents that can be direct or indirect. To evaluate the total cost of the accident, you must combine both the direct and indirect costs. These costs come out of the employer's profits. Depending on the company's profit margin, significant additional sales are required to offset the costs of a workplace injury. Direct costs of an accident. The direct costs of an accident are directly associated with the event and are easily quantified. The employer's insurance company pays most direct costs through workers' compensation. Two main direct costs are the medical costs and the legal payments for compensation for the losses and damages from the accident. Examples of some of these costs are physical therapy, medical expenses, repair fees for damaged equipment, increases in workers' compensation premiums, continuation of pay, compensatory damages, employees. Job productivity. When an accident occurs, productive project time is often lost. The job's project timeline gets delayed. These scheduled delays affect all of the workers, the supervisors, and the customers. In some situations, the delay also results in spoiled products or work that has to be redone. Customers. Customers are undoubtedly unhappy when accidents occur. They are affected by schedule changes, product quality, and employee attitudes. The customer response may go beyond the current project problems and result in lost future sales. Potential new customers may also go to another company if they know of accidents within the company. Employees. Accidents affect employees emotionally, too. When fellow workers get injured, other employees often feel fear and may develop a lack of trust in job safety. Depending on the situation, employees may also feel used and undervalued. These doubts and hesitations will affect employee output and possibly employee turnover rates. Direct or indirect cost. Determine if each of the following is a direct or indirect cost of an accident. Select the button in the direct or indirect column corresponding to your answer. Cost estimate calculator. The The National Council on Compensation Insurance Incorporated, NCCI, collected statistics and data from insurance claims for policy periods 2015 through 2017. This data was incorporated by OSHA in the Safety Pays Cost Estimator for accidents. The NCCI data showed that the magnitude of indirect costs is inversely related to the severity of an accident. Using these numbers, OSHA created the Safety Pays Cost Calculator. The following chart will show the relationship between direct costs and indirect costs in a ratio that is used to calculate the total accident cost. To use the cost estimate calculator, you need to know either the injury type or the workers' compensation direct cost of an accident and the company's profit margin. However, if the profit margin is not known to the officer using the cost estimator, then OSHA will give a default 3% profit margin for calculation of the direct and indirect costs in relation to the additional sales needed to pay total cost of the accident. As an example of this calculator, if you select an amputation from the entry type menu and give the company a profit margin of 10%, the calculator will give you the following information. Amputation 1. Instance. Direct cost $96,003. Indirect cost $105,603. Total cost $201,606. Additional sales needed to recuperate cost. Indirect cost $1,056,030. Additional sales needed to recuperate cost. Total cost $2,016,060. Therefore, this example illustrates that just one instance of an amputation has historically cost $96,003 in direct costs and $105,603 in indirect costs, yielding a total injury cost of $201,606. When workers stay whole and healthy, the direct cost savings for businesses include lower workers' compensation insurance costs, reduced medical expenditures, smaller expenditures for return to work programs, fewer faulty products, lower costs for job accommodations for injured workers. Here are some examples of how companies can pay themselves by preventing accidents and avoiding the associated costs. Ram Construction paid itself $246,000. It took several years, but we decreased our experience modification rate, EMR, from a high of 1.43 to a low of 0.286. This reduction resulted in an average savings in workers' compensation costs of $82,000 per year for the last 3 years. Safety Director, Ram Construction Services, Livonia, Michigan, OSHA CPT number 018212009. Kalmiga and Bluvovets paid itself $211,000. We developed a more visible and structured safety and health system. Our experience modification rate, EMR, is now below 0.6, resulting in savings in our workers' compensation costs this year of more than $211,000. Safety Director, Kalmiga and Bluvovets, Grand Rapids, Michigan, OSHA CPT number 018212009. Safety programs. Workplace injuries are preventable in a safety and health management system. SHMS is the best way to prevent them. A safety program with a systematic approach integrates occupational safety and health objectives into the company's organizational structure. The results include an effective system that supports the organization's philosophy, safety and health policies and goals that are clearly communicated, accountability for implementing the system, long-term solutions rather than one-time fixes, evaluation of results over time to promote continual improvement, a system that positively impacts the company's bottom line. The components of a successful safety program include leadership for management, worker participation, hazard identification and assessment, hazard prevention and control, education and training, program evaluation and improvement, communication and coordination for host employers, contractors, and staffing agencies. Let's look at each of these 7 elements in greater detail. Leadership for management. A committed management unit provides clearly defined objectives and goals for organizational safety. They finance safety activities through purchases and resource allocations. Every level of management should value safety practices and accomplishments as much as they value regulatory compliance. Leaders' commitment to safety ensures a company's safety vision exists. This vision should be communicated regularly and widely. Additionally, it should align with and support company values and promote and communicate the concept of safe production. Management leadership means that business owners, CEOs, managers, and supervisors at all levels are fully committed to continuously improving workplace safety and health performance. Safety leaders have the courage to demonstrate that they value safety by working and communicating with team members to identify and limit hazardous situations even in the presence of other job pressures such as scheduling and costs. Here are some steps managers can take to demonstrate their commitment to safety leadership. Writing or personally signing a clearly defined safety policy that acknowledges that safety and health are as important as productivity, regulatory compliance, and customer service. Communicating the policy and values to all levels of the organization. Visually setting examples of safety behavior and demonstrating actions consistent with the safety culture. Allocating resources for safety and health. Holding all levels of the organization accountable for safety performance. The best way to measure improvement is to set goals. Focused goals attached to actions will direct managers, supervisors, and employees to incorporate the safety and health plan into their daily work. Setting SMART goals can help define program goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. While it isn't necessary to use this method, it's a great way to help focus the company's vision for safety and health. S. Specific. M. Measurable. A. Attainable. R. Relevant. T. Time-bound. Case study. Management leadership. Select the buttons below to explore the comment or get more detail. S. Specific. Good goal setting begins with specificity. Choose goals that you can visualize the company accomplishing. M. Measurable. To avoid vagueness, make the goals measurable. That means employees should be able to mentally check boxes or count their efforts numerically to see progress. A. Attainable. Of course, the goals you set for the company can't be so lofty that they are impossible to achieve. Not only that, but employees won't be motivated to participate if they don't think they can succeed. R. Relevant. Safety and health goals should be relevant to your company's overall mission and employees' daily tasks. It wouldn't make sense to create goals that are irrelevant to your work. A man employed by a roofing company in southern Florida was doing Worker participation. Workers have much to gain from a successful safety and health program, and often the most to lose if the program fails. Workers usually know the most about their jobs and are often those closest to potential hazards. Worker participation means that all workers, including contractors, subcontractors, and temporary staffing agency workers, have opportunities to participate throughout the process of designing and implementing a safety program, have access to the information they need to participate effectively in the program, are encouraged to participate in the program and feel comfortable reporting safety and health concerns. Workers are often best positioned to identify safety and health concerns and program deficiencies, such as emerging workplace hazards, unsafe conditions, close calls near misses, and actual incidents. By encouraging reporting and following up promptly on all reports, employers can address issues before someone gets hurt or becomes ill. Encourage employees to participate. By encouraging workers to participate in the program, leadership also signals that it values worker input on safety and health decisions. Management should acknowledge and provide positive reinforcement to workers who actively participate in the program. Maintain an open door policy that invites workers to talk to managers about safety and health. Encourage workers to make suggestions about safety and health. Welcome their suggestions and provide positive reinforcement to anyone who contributes. Also, give employees the time and resources they need to participate, even if that means taking some time away from their usual work. Encourage employees to report concerns. Employees are on the front line. They can see potential hazards, unsafe conditions, close calls or near misses, and accidents management won't see. Create an environment that welcomes suggestions and improvements so employees won't hesitate to fill out and follow up on reports. As they do their part to report issues, you can fix the problem before an accident occurs. You will build employee trust by following up on the concerns and suggestions. Employees are your eyes and ears on the work site. You should consider giving them the power to either shut down or request to shut down operations if they think it is unsafe. Access to safety and health information. Employees are entitled to know what hazards are present on the work site. Look at this graphic to learn what hazard information employees must have access to. Involve employees in all aspects. Employees involved in creating and enforcing the program will be able to take ownership of all the hard work they put in, which ensures that the program will last. They will also understand it better than if you were going to listen to them along with you. There are so many ways to involve employees in this process. You may want their help in setting goals to reduce accidents. Employees could identify and report hazards and then suggest how to mitigate them. They are also an excellent resource for performing job site inspections. Your employees can help you write safe operating procedures for the program. They could also be part of the investigative team for close calls or near misses. Employees who want to take more charge of the program would be great trainers for coworkers and new employees. Remove barriers to participation. Your employee demographic is probably somewhat diverse. No matter their backgrounds, employees need to feel welcome, heard, and empowered before they will want to participate in the safety and health program. If they fear retaliation or discrimination, they will be discouraged from participating. Make sure that creating a program is an all-inclusive effort. Invite employees from every department, skill level, education, and language to help you. To further encourage participation, the program should have a section that states employees are protected from retaliation. To encourage employees from all levels of your company to join the plan, you may want to hold safety and health meetings during regular work hours. Then, follow up with employees regularly on actions being taken to address their suggestions and concerns. Hazard identification assessment. A proactive, ongoing process to identify and assess hazards in order to fix them is a core element of any effective safety and health program. Failure to identify or recognize hazards is frequently one of the root causes of workplace injuries, illnesses, and incidents, and it indicates that the safety and health program is ineffective. Hazard assessment can, and should, lead to opportunities to improve program performance. A hazard is any condition or action that can cause an organizational loss. An organizational loss can come in the form of an injury or illness, damaged equipment, or even worker turnover. When a loss occurs, the The organization must determine the root cause of the loss and not just the symptoms. The assessment process must be structured, detailed, and deliver actionable measures to address the root cause. Hazard identification and assessment can be accomplished through worksite analysis of past, present, and predictive data from reports, instrumentation, and maintenance logs, as well as worker injury and illness records. Worksite inspections for safety hazards. Investigating each accident until the root cause is completely disclosed. Identifying hazards that may arise outside of normal operating conditions, including emergencies and startup or shutdown operations. Characterizing the true composition of the hazard, giving a priority value to each component, and identifying appropriate hazard controls. Gather all the information about hazards on the worksite in which employees are or could be exposed to them. There are a variety of sources you can refer to for this information, including operators' manuals, SDSs, inspection reports, injury and illness reports, incident investigations, workers' compensation records, exposure monitoring results, industrial hygiene assessments, medical records, JHAs, job hazard analysis. Hazard identification can be the difference between life and death, so make time to research. You may find information from external sources as well, as listed here. NIOSH, CDC, CCOHS, Safety and Health Consultants, trade associations, labor unions, local OSHA committees. Inspect the worksite. After identifying as many hazards as possible using existing information, inspect the worksite. A competent person can be assigned to inspect the worksite regularly and ensure that they accurately document their inspections. Encourage the inspection team to photograph hazards and inspect every area and activity involved with the job, including heavy machinery. Consider providing the inspection team with a checklist of general hazard categories so that they will know what to look for. During a typical workday, employees transition from one task to another or even from one worksite to another. In a typical year, companies purchase new equipment and introduce new processes. Both transitions and changes pose new hazards. Talk to employees first about what new hazards will arise from changes and transitions. Identify health hazards. Health hazards are certainly more challenging to notice than worksite hazards. To protect employees' health, inspect work materials, processes, and sites for chemical, physical, biological, and ergonomic hazards. In addition, exposure assessments using air sampling or direct reading instruments will help to identify hazardous atmospheres on the worksite. You can also refer to injury and illness logs to discover health hazards. Conduct incident investigations. Anytime an accident, illness, near miss, or fatality occurs, that's an obvious indication of a hazard. It's not enough to simply report it and then file away the paperwork. Employers need to investigate all incidents to find out what caused them. A definitive plan for conducting incident investigations will take away the guesswork when incidents happen. A trained investigation team should approach the incident determining the root causes objectively. They should investigate close calls and near misses just as seriously as actual accidents. In addition to management, employees can be great additions to an investigation team. The team will be responsible for sharing the results of their investigation with everyone, including management and coworkers, so that a similar action won't happen again. Emergency and non-routine situations. In an emergency, employees face hazards they wouldn't otherwise deal with. Additionally, when infrequent tasks take place, such as mobilizing and demobilizing the site, employees face other unique hazards. Since employers should aim to identify every possible hazard, they should brainstorm potential emergency scenarios and non-routine tasks employees could face. Account for materials and equipment that employees would be using in that scenario. Then, think about as many hazards as possible associated with those scenarios. Characterize, identify, prioritize. After identifying possible hazards employees may face on the job, assess these hazards. Ask questions like, how severe could these accidents get? How likely is exposure to this hazard? What potential accidents could occur from this hazard? How many employees are exposed to this hazard? While assessing hazards, prioritize them so the ones with the greatest risk are tackled first. Don't forget, however, that employers are obligated to control all recognized hazards. Employers may be able to use temporary control measures for some hazards until more permanent solutions are available. Remember, protecting employees is the top priority during this process. Hazard prevention and control. Preventing and controlling hazards will protect workers from injuries and give employees a feeling that cares about it. It is always preferable to eliminate hazards entirely, but when that is not possible, other hazard controls are appropriate. Tips for implementing hazard prevention and controls are as follows. Identify what controls are available for each type of hazard. Select the proper controls by doing a detailed hazard assessment. Develop, maintain, and update a hazard control plan. Select controls that are applicable for all aspects of the organization and conditions. Implement the selected hazard controls with a priority on elimination and substitution of hazards. Follow up on all hazard controls for each task to make sure they're protective enough. Let's look at each of these steps in greater detail. Identify options. There is a lot of information about controlling hazards on the work site. Before choosing any one control method, consider asking employees who are familiar with the dangers of the job when they're injured. Research industry authorities such as CCOHS, OSHA, NIOSH, or trade organizations to learn about different options. Check out what other work sites are using and decide if those measures would be effective. Select controls. Think about choosing solutions that will last. While supplying employees with PPE may help in the short term and cost less money, it shouldn't be the primary control method. The ultimate goal is to eliminate hazards as quickly as possible. Emphasize removing or replacing the hazard first, and don't use controls that would introduce new hazards to the job. For example, if employees are overexposed to noise and also work around heavy machinery, don't introduce hearing protection that would make it impossible for them to hear backup alarms. Develop a hazard control program. Develop a hazard control plan that explains how each control method is applied to the job.